been well over a year since I last talked about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is just way too long. I mean, do people even still care about this show? Is there any hype left? Oh my god, is it even still relevant? Oh. Right. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. I hope you are all doing well and excited to talk some more Avatar: The Last Airbender. Someone asked me back in May if I'd be willing to do an episode ranking, and since this is still a very small channel and you guys have a huge say in what I cover, please don't abuse that. I started my rewatch right away. Now, obviously, this is the biggest ranking I've ever attempted with 61 episodes in total, so I will be splitting this ranking up into two parts, with today's video covering the bottom 30. Part 2 will release a week from the release of this video, followed by a Rick and Morty episode ranking for the newly completed season 5. So if you're a fan of Rick and Morty as well, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss that one. Anyways, that's enough chit chat. Let's dive right on in. Starting at the bottom at number 61 is Season 3, Episode 9, Nightmares and Daydreams. Now, of these 61 episodes of this incredible show, I think this is the only episode that actually struggles. It doesn't quite know what it wants to be aside from its main focus of showing that Aang is stressed out about his inevitable confrontation with Fire Lord Ozai. His stress levels get so bad that he develops insomnia, and Team Avatar all try their hand at helping him relax and getting some sleep. Meanwhile, Zuko is quite relaxed. He has regained his honor, he's back together with Mai, and he has rejoined his father back in the Fire Nation Palace, but he's contemplating whether he's truly being himself and if he made the right decision. This show constantly throws parallels and clashes between Aang's and Zuko's characters. I mean, they could be learning the same exact thing at the same exact time, even when miles apart, and oftentimes one is ending a specific journey while the other one is starting it. In this case, Aang is a nervous wreck. He's a bundle of tangled nerves, and Zuko represents that calm before the storm. This is the last episode before Zuko finally makes the best decision of his life, the one that Iroh has been trying to persuade him towards since the very beginning. So while this episode does accomplish that, its main focus on Aang's stress just isn't as interesting to watch for the majority of 22 minutes. There are some cute instances of the show's charm and humor, but at the end of the day, this is the episode that I often forget even exists. Next up at number 60 is Season 1, Episode 11, The Great Divide. This episode is the least favorite amongst many fans, and I have to agree. Placed between episodes like Jet and The Blue Spirit, this episode feels out of place and like a waste of time. To be fair, looking back, it's not that bad. It's a cute episode with a good lesson for children. It shows Aang's leadership skills a bit and reminds us that Sokka and Katara can be bickering siblings from time to time. But it's just such a random episode that does nothing to further any character's overarching arcs or set up any major developments for the story. Moving on to number 59, we are moving away from the forgettable episodes and into the meh territory with the show's pilot, The Boy in the Iceberg. And yeah, there's not much to say regarding this episode other than that it sets up our main characters of Katara, Sokka, Aang, Zuko, and Iroh. It is slow, it does have a low energy about it, and the dialogue is awkward and clunky at times, but it does its job. Coming in ahead of it at number 58 is Season 2, Episode 4, The Swamp. This episode does quite a few things for the betterment of the show. It shows the connectivity within the world that the story takes place. It introduces our swampy waterbenders who can even bend vines within the forest, and it foreshadows Aang's earthbending teacher, Toph. There is also some great humor here with whiny Sokka and also Appa and Momo, who are separated from the group. But again, at the end of the day, it just feels like a meh episode that serves to distract us from the season's actual goals. Next up at number 57 is Season 3, Episode 17, The Ember Island Players. Another distraction from the main narrative, this episode at least provides a fun, meta-joke-filled episode that recaps the entire show in a hilarious way, with the Ember Island Players being guilty of some of the worst casting choices.
I must capture the Avatar to regain my honor!
Well, while you do that, maybe I'll capture another slice.
There are a couple things related to the bigger picture of the show. For one, Aang asks Katara if they'll ever end up together, but Katara is too focused on the war, she just can't think about that right now. And two, for very avid viewers, there is an Easter egg for the graphic novels regarding Zuko and his mom, which, by the way, I will be putting out a ranking video for the graphic novels, so if you haven't read them yet, read them, they're amazing, and be on the lookout for that video. Moving on to number 56 is Season 2, Episode 2, The Cave of Two Lovers. This episode has some neat aspects to it, like further setting up Aang and Katara's romance arc, and of course, Secret Tunnel! Secret Tunnel! It's a fine bridge episode between the season's premiere and the gang's return to Omashu, but the plot is fairly average, leaving the excitement for the big reveal at the end. Coming in at number 55 is Season 3, Episode 2, The Headband. This episode revolves around Aang joining a school to see if he can dig up any dirt on the Fire Nation in the effort to take down the Fire Lord, but it quickly devolves its focus into Aang helping the Fire Nation students express themselves and break a few rules. Meanwhile, Zuko is visiting his uncle Iroh in jail after making the wrong decision to side with Azula in the Season 2 finale. This is where his journey of finding his way again really begins. However, it is a journey and he constantly teeters back and forth, and in this episode, there is a huge backstep with him hiring an assassin to take out Aang, who he believes is still alive. In the end, this is a quaint and charming episode that lacks any major wow factor. Next up at number 54 is the next episode, Season 3, Episode 3, The Painted Lady. The first half of Season 3 is filled with a string of these one-off episodes as the gang inches their way closer and closer to the Day of Black Sun and gets into position. Some of them are really great and or a lot of fun, but the others are quite average when compared to the rest of the show. In most episodes, they are helping people out even though they are in enemy territory, and this episode is one of those with Katara putting on the guise of the Painted Lady legend within this town's folklore to help them out with the factory that is polluting their water and poisoning their food supply. Meanwhile, Sokka is worried about time, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense since the very next episode is all about him taking time out of their preset schedule to train with the Swordmaster. It's a fine episode, it's just simply one that I would prefer to brush past to the more exciting and intimate moments. Moving on to number 53 is Season 3, Episode 7, The Runaway. Only a few episodes later, the gang is struggling for some cash, so Toph decides to out-scam a few scam artists, which leads to a clash with Katara, who speaks out against it. We learn how the gang kind of sees Katara as the motherly figure amongst them, which she takes poorly until she realizes in the end that this is just what the gang needs. Zuko's assassin also makes his first strike against Team Avatar in this episode, which makes them hightail it out of the city and onto the next. And overall, I enjoy this episode. It delivers fun moments with our characters acting very much like themselves. Toph being rambunctious, Sokka being annoying, and even Aang having some childish fun. It's not a bad episode, it just doesn't have a whole lot to discuss. There isn't much world building here, and the action is easily overshadowed by majority of the other episodes. Which leads us to number 52, Season 1, Episode 19, The Siege of the North, Part 1. And while this is home to some memorable moments like Sokka falling for Princess Yue, Aang entering the spirit world, and Katara and Zuko duking it out over Aang's body, it's really hard for this episode to shine when its primary job is to set up the big finale for the first season. This episode walks so that the next one can run, and while I don't think there's anything wrong with that, it does unfortunately put this one lower on my list. Moving on to number 51 is Season 2, Episode 14, City of Walls and Secrets. This was a hard one for me to place, but I think it kind of falls into the same territory as the last one in that this one suffers from having to set up a huge story thread for Season 2, and thus this episode doesn't have much of a chance to shine on its own. It does have some cool stuff like the first glimpse into Ba Sing Se, Jet being brainwashed, and of course Ju Di.
You're in Ba Sing Se now. Everyone is safe here.
But again, its main purpose is to set up the conspiracies going on in this city and put our beloved characters into a tough position. Next up at number 50 is Season 1, Episode 4, The Warriors of Kyoshi. As one of the earlier episodes for the show, this is an episode that is light in plot and heavier on themes. Aang wants to make one of his many pit stops on their way to the Northern Water Tribe so that he can ride Elephant Koi. He attracts a lot of attention from the town on Kyoshi Island, while Katara gets a bit jealous, and Sokka learns to not be sexist as he bonds with Suki, his love interest and the amazing leader of the Kyoshi Warriors. In the end, they fight Zuko together, and the episode wraps up with Sokka getting a kiss before they head off to Omashu. But coming in at number 49 is Season 1, Episode 6, Imprisoned. Another early episode of the series, this one provides a great eye into the world as it currently stands, apart from our main characters. We get to see the Fire Nation's hold on the world, how crippled the Earth Kingdom is with the Earthbenders afraid to stand up for themselves, and this episode gives us more insight into Katara's empathy and philosophy, while also setting up the metal bending arc super early by showing us that no Earthbender can bend metal. Yet. It's a solid episode that inspires us just as Katara inspires the Earthbenders to reclaim their lives. Moving on to number 48 is Season 3, Episode 4, Sokka's Master. This is a cool little episode that revolves around Sokka's feelings of inadequacy since he is the only non-bender in the group, so they let him seek out a master of his own to hone his sword fighting skills. In the end, we learn his master is actually a member of the Order of the White Lotus, and he lets Sokka leave with more self-confidence and a space sword. Meanwhile, another White Lotus member, Iroh, is secretly training in his own cell in preparation for his escape. It's a pretty straightforward episode with some world building and character development that serves as a fine entry in the show's final season. But taking the spot ahead of it at number 47 is Season 2, Episode 5, Avatar Day, another town for Team Avatar, but this one looks promising at first as they are celebrating Avatar Day. That is until the gang realizes that they hate the Avatar and force Aang to stand trial in Kyoshi's place for killing their leader in the past. It's a fun little mystery with Sokka donning a detective's hat and lightening up the episode with that classic humor of his.
So what? If Kyoshi was in the ceremony at sunset, she couldn't have been in Shin committing the crime. She has an alibi.
We get flashbacks and more lore behind Kyoshi as an avatar, and the subplot shows Zuko being humbled by Iroh and poverty and deciding that he needs to go on his own for a while in search of who he really wants to be. This episode is a great step forward on many fronts and promises more to come. Next up at number 46 is Season 3, Episode 5, The Beach. This is a rare episode that focuses on a different group of characters aside from Team Avatar, this time revolving around Azula, Zuko, Ty Lee, and Mai as they take a forced vacation on Ember Island, the same island that Team Avatar goes to with Zuko as they hide before Sozin's comet. This one has a bunch of minor character development for characters who usually don't get the spotlight. Azula proves to be super awkward when flirting with boys. Zuko becomes hot-headed when Mai attracts attention from other boys. And Ty Lee, well. In the end, the group bonds closer together, they let out their frustration, and Zuko and Mai end up back together. But coming in at number 45 is Season 1, Episode 16, The Deserter. This is a solid episode that often gets overlooked, but it sets up Aang's fear of firebending, sets up Katara's healing abilities with water, and reminds Aang that outsmarting is often more efficient than trying to outgun your opponents by making General Zhao wipe out his own fleet. We are also introduced to yet another member of the Order of the White Lotus with Master Zhang Zhang, although it is revealed later on. It also sets up the true meaning of fire and its art of bending by showing that even a master considers it to be just destruction, which we of course learn later on is the opposite of true in the episode The Firebending Masters. But coming in at number 44 is Season 2, Episode 8, The Chase. Another episode all about losing sleep, but one that is actually done very well and furthers the plot and arcs for our characters, unlike Nightmares and Daydreams. This episode features another squabble between Katara and Toph, with Toph thinking she doesn't need to help the team since she is pulling her own weight, and Katara thinking that everyone should help out and benefit from it. All the meanwhile, they are kept up all night long, being chased by an armored tank of sorts, which leads to them taking it out on each other rather than their perpetrators. We get some good action scenes here, showcasing Ty Lee's chi blocking abilities and Mei's affinity for knives, as well as how powerful and psychotic Azula can be. Toph also runs into Iroh, who is following Zuko just in case he needs help on his solo journey, and in the end, they all work together to take down Azula. However, Azula does manage to get in a cheap shot at Iroh, leading to Zuko lashing out at Team Avatar and forcing them to leave. This episode is a great chapter in the middle of their journey to Ba Sing Se, providing great action and character moments. Moving on to number 43 is Season 2, Episode 11, The Desert. This is a very tragic episode following the events of the library where Appa is taken. This episode explores Aang's darker side as he struggles to come to grips with the recent loss of his sky bison and begins to lose all hope. We see him take revenge and kill a buzzard wasp when attacked, and he almost wipes out the Sandbenders who took Appa when entering the Avatar state. Luckily, Katara reels him back and prevents him from doing something he would inevitably regret. Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh are making their own way to Ba Sing Se for their own reasons. They run into the rough rhinos but hold their own, and then also the men that Toph's father sent after her, Yu and Xin Fu. Fortunately, they are able to escape from their little scuffle and then receive help from the Order of the White Lotus. This is another solid bridge episode that is heavy on themes and action. But taking the number 42 spot is Season 1, Episode 5, The King of Omashu. This is a very simple plot for the show, with Aang having to go through 3 trials after having fun but also wreaking havoc on the city. But it's a very nostalgic episode for me that teaches Aang and us viewers to always try to think outside the box. It sets up many future story threads and recurring characters, most notably...
My cabbages!
Next up at number 41 is Season 2, Episode 18, The Earth King. Another episode about another king in the Earth Kingdom. This one revolves around the gang's attempt at ousting Long Feng as the ringleader of the shadow government to the real Earth King, Qa. Luckily, they prevail and are rewarded with some letters, leading to the gang splitting up for some time to go on their own quests. And meanwhile, Zuko is sick as his body struggles and mirrors his inner conflict between his good and his bad sides. Iroh looks after him as Zuko has prophetic dreams, including his destiny, his mother, and a pair of red and blue dragons. This episode is a fun ride and a solid setup for the Season 2 finale, ending perfectly with a scary cliffhanger of Azula and friends infiltrating Ba Sing Se and posing as the Kyoshi Warriors. Kicking off the top 40 is Season 1, Episode 18, The Waterbending Master. After finally making it all the way to the Northern Water Tribe, Team Avatar runs into a pickle when Aang and Katara realize that their waterbending master is a sexist who refuses to teach Katara. However, Aang and Katara don't let it stop them, with Aang secretly teaching her at night, which leads to them getting caught and Katara challenging Master Pakku to a duel. In the end, Pakku realizes that Katara is his granddaughter and decides to abandon the tribe's archaic tradition of only allowing men to waterbend. Filled with great bending action, solid world building, and grounded themes, this episode delivers a fine payout for the gang's journey so far and sets up the 2-part season finale fantastically. But coming in at number 39 is Season 3, Episode 18, Sozin's Comment Part 1, The Phoenix King. The first episode of the epic series finale, this one sets up the ending extremely well, but it is a bit lackluster in the plot, not having many legs to stand on by itself. It starts off with Zuko informing the group of Ozai's plans to destroy the Earth Kingdom during Sozin's comment, which puts Aang into panic mode as he comes to realize the weight of what he has to do: kill Ozai. as a monk, it goes against Aang's philosophy, and so during the middle of the night, he leaves the group, subconsciously drawn to an island close by. In turn, Zuko takes the rest of the gang to the Earth Kingdom to find June, who he hopes can help find Aang. And meanwhile, Ozai makes Azula the new Fire Lord as he transcends himself to the title of Phoenix King. This episode is forced with the job of setting up the pieces for the grand finale, and while it does its job the best way it can, it is unable to deliver anything much greater than that. Moving on to number 38 is Season 1, Episode 7, Winter Solstice Part 1, The Spirit World. This is a rather straightforward episode that showcases Aang's relationship to the spirits and the spirit world as he tries to figure out why a certain spirit is abducting people from a town, including Sokka. He learns that Avatar Roku has a message for him and that he can talk to him on Crescent Island during the solstice, which sets up the following episode. Meanwhile, Iroh is captured by Earth Kingdom soldiers, forcing Zuko to cease his pursuit of the Avatar in order to save his uncle, which I think is pretty cool. It shows how much Zuko loves and values his uncle, while also hinting at Iroh's past with Ba Sing Se while he was a general. This episode is light on plot and humor, but is heavy on arcs and world building, earning it a spot in my top 40. Next up at number 37 is Season 1, Episode 14, The Fortune Teller. This is a very solid episode that explores some mature themes in a way that's suitable for children, but that's also still entertaining to watch for older audiences. Its balance is quite incredible. It explores love, featuring a love triangle between Aang, Katara, and Mang, but it also explores destiny and fate in a way that reminds us not to wait on it, but to seek it out and shape our own destinies with our own decisions. It's got great lessons, awesome action, and some of the show's best humor.
And you've got some pretty big ears, don't you? I guess.
Don't be modest, they're huge!
But kicking off the top 5 for this video, number 36 is Season 1, Episode 9, The Waterbending Scroll. We finally get to see Aang and Katara train together for the first time and witness Aang be a natural pro and quickly surpass Katara on inherited talent. Katara gets quickly jealous and becomes obsessed over it, leading to her stealing a waterbending scroll from pirates and the gang being captured for it. It's a solid episode that progresses our characters and sets up Katara's arc of hard work and dedication to becoming the best waterbender in the world, and it delivers some great action sequences. Not to mention another cameo from the show's best character.
My cabbages! This place is worse than Omashu!
Moving on to number 35 is Season 2, Episode 13, The Drill. I enjoyed this episode a lot because while it is just non-stop action, which there's nothing wrong with that, it also showcases each character's strengths and weaknesses, protagonists and antagonists alike. Sokka comes up with a plan but is helpless in the bending arena. Toph helps out on the ground thinking she is useless in a metal machine. Azula bests Aang in combat even though she is limited to one element and Aang can bend 3 at this point. But Aang always has friends to help, this time that being Momo.
Thanks, Momo. I owe you one.
Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh are entering Ba Sing Se, and Jet tries to recruit Zuko into the Freedom Fighters until he learns that Iroh must be a firebender and sets his eyes on taking them down in the next episode. There's ups and downs, big stakes, and big laughs that make this episode shine on its own. If this is one of your favorites, I certainly understand. But coming in at number 34 is Season 2, Episode 15, Tales of Ba Sing Se. This is a nice diversion from the show's formula, giving us a collection of shorts of our main characters exploring the city of Ba Sing Se. We have Katara and Toph bonding, building up each other's self-confidence, Aang helping a local zoo as he misses his lost best friend Appa, Sokka stumbling into a haiku battle, Zuko going on a date, while Iroh has a moment of vulnerability, paying respects to his deceased son, and Momo discovering that his best flying friend is somewhere within this city. It delivers great highs and lows, some heartfelt moments as well as shocking ones, and gifts us with one of the best songs in the entire show. But ahead of it at number 33 is Season 1, Episode 12, The Storm. This is a great example of an episode that sets up a following one, but still manages to stand strong on its own, bringing unique things to the table to talk about. We learn why Zuko is so hardened on the outside, seeing glimpses into his past regarding his Agni Kai with his father. And it's also revealed why Aang ran away from the Southern Air Temple and how he came to be frozen in ice for 100 years. While this episode may be exposition heavy, it reveals everything in creative ways, tying past storms to the one they must weather now. And last but not least for this video is the season premiere for Season 3, The Awakening. This is a very moving episode as we watch Aang struggle with the idea of people thinking he's dead. He has to come to terms with the fact that it is a strategic advantage and that he doesn't have to do it all alone, with Sokka forcing him to hit the bench and let the rest of Team Avatar take over while he recovers. I just love the camaraderie and empathy that they all show Aang, who just feels like he's a failure. He's failed twice and he wants to end it all as soon as possible, and he feels that he needs to do it himself. Meanwhile, Katara comes to terms with her slight resentment towards her father for leaving her and Sokka to fight in the war, knowing that he did what was right, but struggling to deal with her emotions. Hakoda comforts her and validates her feelings, further showing the level of care and attention to detail that the writing staff applies to its characters. Meanwhile, back in the Fire Nation, Zuko returns with Azula after betraying Iroh, which leaves him in a prison cell, and we finally get our first real look at the big bad Fire Lord Ozai.
You have redeemed yourself, my son. Welcome home.
This is a strong episode that just barely didn't make the cut for my top 31. It's enjoyable and it's a great start for the final season of the show. Well, that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss part 2. And let me know what your list looks like down in the comments below. I love to see which episodes resonate with other fans for the show and which ones kind of flop. And if you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you so much for your continued support and reward you all with an Easter egg hunt. The first person to comment below where the hidden rubber ducky is in the thumbnail for this video, as well as where the rubber ducky is in the background behind me, will get a special shout out and maybe another special something else. All you gotta do is comment below where those two rubber duckies are, either using pictures or just describing where you see them. And if you're not the first person, don't worry, there will be more chances in future videos, although it will get harder from here. Follow me on Instagram using the link in the description to increase your chances next time. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I will see you all next time.